Welcome to Linux for the Rest of Us, episode number 30. The Linux show where we kind of fill you in on what we think you need to know about Linux, what's new with Linux, what could help you with Linux, and anything about Linux that we could possibly think of. Not just me, though. The Linux maven, our friend, the door-to-door geek, Steve McLaughlin, is here with us. What's up, Steve?
Oh, a lot of stuff, and I'll just add one thing. Also, sometimes how to have fun with Linux.
Yeah, I left that out, didn't I?
Well, it isn't always about work, but people always want to know how they can be productive first. It seems like once they hit a certain age, they just want to know how they can be productive.
And then once they hit the next age, they just want to know how to have fun.
Bing.
I get where you're going.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll go over all that stuff.
Cool.
What do you want to start off with first?
Well, the first thing I wanted to just touch on was I did put my CR48 in dev mode.
You did.
The differences are virtually unnoticeable to the normal user, and it was so easy to do. That's the kicker. Take the battery out of the back. There's a little piece of black tape that blends in perfectly with the whole device. You don't even see it.
Right.
You just take your finger and you just start scraping, and all of a sudden, bam, there's a piece of tape. You pull it off, and there's a little teeny toggle switch, like the kind you would see like in the back of a 1970s TV. Just the little white nub, and that's all it is.
Right.
And you just flick that switch, reboot the computer, and it warns you. It says this is not in a protected mode. Are you sure you want to continue, kind of thing.
Now, what are you able to do that's in dev mode?
Gives me a full-blown command prompt, which if you're not already comfortable with Linux, doesn't amount to a hill of beans to the normal people. But
did you do anything with it?
Honestly, not yet. The one thing I do want to do is play with is this device has built-in Bluetooth. Nowhere on the device is there a way to change the status, look at, or even acknowledge that there's Bluetooth in it. So via dev mode, there are certain things you can do with Bluetooth, and I want to play with that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Cool. That's an easy hack. Jeez, take off the tape and hit the white switch.
Dude, I'm all about the easy hacks.
It's great. Speaking of hacks, I mean, we just did an episode of My Hard Drive Died with Scott Moulton. Did you catch any of that?
No, but everybody in the lounge was basically freaking out. Like, he just took a hard drive apart. That's cool. Look how complicated it is.
I know, that's the thing. He's like, I made an easy fix. And he's like, you got to buy this thing and you smash this bearing out and you do that. And I'm like, wow, that's hard. But I actually enjoyed it because that's the kind of stuff I like to do. And I think a lot of people who watch the show like to do that kind of thing too. And it's a hack. I mean, it's such a hack that if you don't do it that way, you're going to be spending $6,000 for the equipment needed to do it. Like a company came out with a $6,000 piece of equipment. Scott showed us how to do it for under $100. So it's super geeky. Just make sure you watch it or listen to that podcast, and you got to watch the video because he's got these killer slides that go along with it. And yeah, it just reminded me of it. Very hacky, very geeky.
He's just lucky I don't live by him because he seems like the kind of guy I would love to just listen to his conversations all day to hear how he figures stuff out and does stuff.
He's pretty amazing. I mean, he's the kind of guy that you go knocking on his door to like borrow milk or something, and he opens up and he see all this stuff like strewn about the room, and you go, "What are you working on, Scott?" And he'll be like, "Come on in, I want to show you this." And then he shows you something that'll just blow your mind. That's the kind of neighbor I picture Scott to be.
Same
He's
here.
always working on something that's just incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would definitely take a pay cut to go and work with him. And my wife would kill me.
He might take you up on that.
Right.
All right. How did we get off there? Oh, CR48.
Yes, right. Yeah, and I'll just say, if anybody has never watched or listened to any of the My Hard Drive Dies, honestly, I've never heard anybody enunciate hard drive procedures and practices and how they work in such an understandable manner before. I highly encourage anyone who just wants to just understand a little bit more about drives, because drives are essentially computers to themselves. You know, there's a lot going on in there. It isn't just a spinning disk picking up signals. There's a lot of stuff going on there. You should really give that cast a listen.
Definitely. I agree with you. And we will try to get more shows done. I think it's been 3 months since we did the last one, but we'll try to get more in there.
He's a busy guy. I can definitely see it being not regular.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. First thing I wanted to bring up, to be honest, is the kind of thing I never want to bring up.
Uh-oh, crap.
But the only constant in this universe that is possible is change. I'll say that. Themes on anything, I almost always I just ignore. I just don't even mess around with. I can't stand them because when you redo your computer, you got to do it again, and it seems like a hassle sometimes to do it, and then you don't always remember the name of it, and you can never get it to quite look right the same, and this kind of thing. I saw a tweet, I want to say January 14th, 15th, and it was about a theme for Ubuntu that got refreshed. And I can tell you, at least 4 people I know of have told me this is the best looking computer period they've ever seen when you install this theme, because it's actually a 2-parter. The theme is called Orta, and the second part of the theme is the Flanenza icon theme. These two hand in hand basically transform everything in your Ubuntu desktop to look completely different. Like utterly.
Are these pictures that you put in your notes? These are the new theme. That theme.
Yeah.
Okay. I might be using. Does it come with Ubuntu? Because I did change my theme. I'm actually quite enjoying the one I'm using.
It doesn't come with it. I know I had to install it, but it was seriously 6 lines of code. 4 of the lines are virtually identical. So you just, one line is to add it to the repo, because like I said, episode 4 or 5, people like giving step-by-steps on the command line because they know if you copy-paste, you can't get it wrong. And if you're running Linux Mint, or if you're running Kubuntu, or if you're running Edubuntu, or Shubuntu, and all these different things, then there's different ways through the interface to do it. There is a way to do it through the interface, but highlighting, copying, and pasting, it's hard to get more simple than that.
I see.
This is, to be honest, the cleanest look I think I've ever seen on a computer. And I will utterly be honest to everyone when I say this. It looks to me just as clean, as sharp, as simple as the screenshots I see of the Mac desktop. I've actually never used a Mac. The only time I ever saw a Mac was, to be honest, Steve, your Mac at the Podnutz party.
Oh, okay. All right, man. What? The
They're
only
not that-
time you ever saw a Mac?
The last time I saw a Mac before that was 1985.
I
And that was
don't
an Apple
believe
Mac.
it. I don't believe it. I can't believe
They're
that.
not that popular.
I can't believe
I
it.
mean, they're not. I mean, I know a guy at work who has a Mac Mini, and a guy at work that has a, I think it's like a 4-year-old MacBook, but I've never seen them.
Do you go outside?
Yes, and I don't live in a popular college town,
Okay.
and I'm not like, it isn't like I live in the same neighborhood where Mike Tyson lives.
I know. I'm just saying. It's one thing to say I don't have a Mac or I don't use a Mac, but to say you've never seen a Mac since that was 3 years ago. That's just amazing to me.
Well, honestly, I think it's kind of like this. A lot of people don't realize the numbers are actually very close to the number of Mac users versus the number of Linux users.
Aha.
Now, in the last 3 years, the Mac laptop has annihilated the market at a phenomenal pace. That now separates the Linux and Mac's computer. The numbers to where they have, I don't want to say twice as much, but it's like, I think 60%, 70% more because of that alone.
Yeah. Well, I know what, I'll give you this, because to be fair, I haven't seen a Linux machine. Probably, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw somebody running Linux that wasn't one of you guys.
Right.
So okay.
Yeah, and now to also bow down a little bit more again, part of the reason I don't see Macs is because I tell my customers, even who are tired of paying me money. If you're tired of paying me money, get a Mac. And then they get a Mac, and then they don't call me. So that's another reason why I don't see them. I
Okay.
tell them, if you want me to work on it, I'll try to work on it. I'll definitely try, and I won't, overcharge you for my time for doing research, or only charge you for the actual task.
Right.
But apparently they don't have issues, or they just call up, I would say Jobs, but he's not there anymore. They call up their Apple Care or whatever.
Right.
They take care of them. But this,
It looks good. It's not very colorful. It looks very clean.
it is very gray and black. I will say that.
Did you install it, Dor?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so these are screenshots of your computer?
No.
Oh.
I literally installed it, I want to say, about 9 hours ago, and my 2-year-old spent half the day puking, so I was chasing him around with a bucket most of the time.
I see. Well, I hope he feels better.
Like kids mean, I'm telling you, like 3.5 hours ago, 2 hours ago, something like that. In between there, all of a sudden, bloop, totally different person running around. Hi, Dad. Running around. Juice. He perfectly fine now.
Wow, that's kids for you, I guess.
I guess.
Well, it looks neat. Are you going to keep it?
I can definitely see keeping it. And here's one of the reasons I honestly really enjoy it is in Linux, a lot of things take the approach of, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. Let's use something that somebody else already has. So every application I use to like my launcher, where like on Quicksilver on Mac, you can launch stuff, and on Windows, you can get Launchy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I use one, and it intelligently pulls all the correct icons from the theme. So everywhere I look now, I see different icons, but they are so much more pleasing to the eye.
Really?
Yeah, and like even Pigeon. Pigeon is not an app that comes installed on Ubuntu by default.
Mm-hmm.
Yet that icon theme changed my Pigeon icon.
And what's the name of it again?
Orta, Orta.
Okay. All right, I got to check it out.
Okay. And the 2 links I have down there are to techdriven.com. To be honest, this is a very new site to me. But I was very happy at the simplicity of their approach. They didn't go into a whole bunch of backstory. They didn't go into a whole bunch of what ifs. They didn't go into a whole bunch of self-promotion. They didn't go into click this to go to page 2, click this to go to page 3, click this to go to, none of that. Just a simple, short, slightly bigger than a page article. Here's a screenshot. Here's what it is. Here's what we think about it, and here's how you put it on your computer.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I wasn't even looking at the tech-driven links. They show a lot more on these.
Yeah, the first 2 links were just screenshots.
Oh.
If you just go to Google Images and search for ORTA space theme, you'll see,
I see. No,
typical.
These do look great.
Yeah. Well, they, I'm sure, set it up themselves to, get what kind of screenshots they wanted. But I can tell you, my screen doesn't look exactly like that. Like on the one, they have a special app launcher at the bottom, which looks like GNOME Do. That's just another customization thing you can do. But the overall just feeling of it, very, very smooth, seamless looking. Where even in the default GNOME, you could kind of see where like a toolbar stopped and something else started on the window.
Yeah.
This is just like polish finish.
Very cool. Very, very nice.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say I'm on the theme bandwagon again, but I do like Orta. I think that's worth a look-see. And if you're on Ubuntu and you just want to test it out kind of thing, you can go to your power button on the top right-hand side of your window by default, and you can hit that and say, go to guest mode. Try it there, because if you don't like it when you log out, it resets back to default.
Nah, yeah, smart move.
Yeah. Every time I do anything like that, I've always first do it in guest mode. Too many times I've done something, and then when I try to go back, because things will always tell you how to move forward. things will almost never tell you how to go back.
So you're saying when you've installed themes in the past, you've tried to go back and everything's just all messed up?
Well, before you had to pick theme, color patterns, and icon packs separately. I know since 10.04 they've done a much better a much better job of integrating them into a single like framework. To when you pick your overall theme, that theme then defines the color patterns, defines the icon packs and stuff.
I see.
It's just if you tweak and check, and you want to go back to one specific one, it's kind of sometimes difficult.
I see. Cool. Good find, Dor. Good find.
Yeah, that was one I definitely tweeted and kept on my bookmark list. Next one to talk about is kind of like we referenced back a couple weeks ago. Actually, now it was about a month ago or more, about making your own router or switch so you could do bandwidth shaping and stuff like that on your own network. Well, not everybody has an extra computer to where they can devote that to. So here's another option. It's from
It's from Shibbolibba that sent me two it do a pop-up ad, and then it popped up another ad at the bottom of the screen. It's SHIBUVARKALA.blogspot.com.
Yeah, let me just say, the first place I got this link from, the page every time took 10 minutes to load.
Yeah.
So I just searched for the title, Control Your Network Traffic with Wondershaper in Linux.
Yeah.
I went through 10 of their links. This was the best one. For some reason, like a lot of bad sites picked up on this and duplicated it.
I
gotta say, it is well worth the hassle of closing a window.
What does it do?
Wondershaper has the power. You install it on the local computer itself, and then you can say, on this box itself, take the now you have to do a little bit of research to know port numbers and stuff, but you can say Dropbox is on port 585, give that low priority. HTML is over port 80, give that medium priority. Skype is over port 989 or whatever, give that high priority. And you can do this on an individual computer by computer basis. So technically you can have one computer being your Skype computer, and you then are reassured Skype is the priority on this network interface card. And then on your other computer, if you're doing Boxy or something, you can say make the Flash video high priority on that box. This is a good tweaker tool if you don't have premium bandwidth at your house.
Yeah.
And you notice some things go up and down all day and you're not really sure what's going on. 99% of the time it's either a DNS issue or it's just background processes sucking down bandwidth that you don't really need them to.
So did you use this on your machine now to give us your wonderful Skype that's coming through here?
This machine I never mess with, because if I start a show and it's not working right, I know you will kill me. I did it on my upstairs computer, and what I did was I said make Flash video. There was like 3 things I said to make high priority, and I said make everything else low priority. And I could tell after messing with it for about an hour and a half, that the things that I said to go slow were indeed not rushed, and the things I said high priority seemed pretty smooth and pretty consistent, snappy, I'll say.
Good. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Control your network traffic with Wondershaper in Linux. Now, is Wondershaper something you get out of the repository, or?
Yeah, sorry. It's just something that's in the repos by default. I never heard of it before, to tell you the truth. But I'll say there's over 30,000 pieces of software.
Right.
I can't know them all. But this is one of those tools. I don't know why it flew under the radar for a while, because after looking at it, it's been around for a little while. And I've never heard anybody else mention it before. If you have a family member also, for instance, you can put this on their computer, shape their own traffic, so maybe they're not as encouraged to repetitively watch people getting kicked between the legs on YouTube. Or something to that effect.
You could discourage going to certain sites.
Yes.
Smart.
Without really cutting them off.
Right.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll say I hate about this website is it has those stupid double underlines under certain words that if you accidentally mouse over, a window pops up.
This site it definitely looks like a content farm to me. I mean, I got splattered with stuff when I went there.
That's the word I couldn't think of.
Yeah, but it basically it does give you the goods. So
right, and I'll say this is another perfect example of why I love Flash Block on Chrome and Firefox. Now the bad thing is there's like 10 of them now. If you go searching Firefox extensions or Chrome extensions Flash Block, the first one is never the right one.
Really?
It's always stuff that doesn't work right, or it's for the whole page you have to enable or disable. The one I like, it puts a little F every place there's something Flash, and you can individually activate what you want on the page.
Cool.
So when I mouse over them, I see a transparent box with the F there, and that's it.
Really? But something still comes up, though?
Yeah, something comes up. It's just empty. It doesn't take any bandwidth or any resources.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this is something I honestly want to tweak and play with. I want to see if I can get everything I want to be a priority, and everything I'm not concerned about, like silent background updates to the operating system. That's not a priority to me. You'll get it when you get it.
Right. That's smart. It's a smart tool, especially if your bandwidth is kind of skimpy.
Yeah. And the second, honestly, link I had to that, it seemed good, but I'll say it didn't have the good step-by-step. And this was to ubuntugeek.com.
Okay.
This link seemed much more complicated, I'll say, how to do it. But, if you just search for Wondershaper Ubuntu how-to, you'll probably find a better link than I found.
Yeah, that looks pretty complicated. But...
Yes. Yes, absolutely. The one thing I wanted to hop back on, and I promised myself every couple weeks, every couple shows, let me rephrase that because I've missed more than a couple shows here in the last month. Every couple shows, I want to come back and I want to talk about games. Well, I keep every show finding more games I've never heard of that not only look good, but they run phenomenal on my 6-year-old laptop with, it was an XPS in its heyday. Now I'd say it's an XPer. It isn't quite an XPS anymore. I think I've almost burnt the processor out doing some
You burnt
things.
the X right out of it. No, I still like that machine. It's a 12-inch Dell, right?
Yeah, that's why I love it. Now I can tell you the battery life I get on that thing is about 20 minutes.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, we could talk about games every show. It's a nice little interjection. You got to inject the fun.
Right. And this is once again at that same website. We did a couple weeks ago where they said 5 great Ubuntu addictive games. This blog post is yet another 5 Ubuntu addictive games, and it's that Hoochie Hamachi.
That's messed up, man. These are some whacked out links. Guys, just do a Google search for yet another 5 Ubuntu addictive games, and you'll probably see hoochiamahachachachi.blogspot.com.
Dude, you're the man.
No, that's not it.
You're better than me.
What a mess.
The one thing I found that I noticed is I like the fact that at least a couple of these are offerable in the Ubuntu Software Center, Synaptic Package Manager, or apt-get. They're all the same thing. And that is honestly makes it even easier and more simple to install. You don't have to go to a site, follow steps, or anything like that. And the one thing I'm going to touch on real quick, it seems like .deb files, somewhere out of the box, stuff seems broke now. Where I know back in like 9.04, maybe 9.10, I would just download a deb file, double click it, and it would work.
Oh, you're talking about what happened to me when I tried to install Chrome on Mint?
Not just you, Steve. I had a PC Freddy, and I know I had 2 more people in the last week, 2 weeks. I'm like, what are you talking about? You just double click a deb file. And then I tried it on one computer.
It opens up the Archive Manager.
Archive Manager. And worst off, it says like unable to open archive. And I'm thinking to myself, that's because it ain't an archive.
It is weird. I mean, even Google's site, when I downloaded Chrome, they go, just follow these instructions. I'm like, oh, this is simple. Boom, boom, boom. And then it opened up the Archive Manager. I'm like, door. I couldn't figure it out.
Right. Now, I believe it's a 2-step process. I do both of these, and it works. I'm not sure if you need the first one, but what I do is I right-click on the file. I go down to permissions. I'm sorry. I right-click the file, go down to properties, then permissions, and then allow execution. I'm not positive you need that step, but it doesn't hurt. The next step is to right-click on the file again and say open with.
Right.
And what you're looking for is either GDeb or I believe it was Software Center.
Okay.
And then it magically opens up how it's supposed to open up the whole time. And the good thing, this is just like Windows MIME associations where you right-click, open with, and then from now on, when you double-click it, it opens right. Once you do that, then any deb file should just be a simple double-click. And it should load right, but that's just something I'll throw in there.
Is it just on Mint Door? Because it didn't happen to me when I installed Ubuntu.
It happened on mine.
I did. Oh, it happened to you. Okay.
Yeah. Now I might have did something goofy because I'm the tinkerer. Like my one guy at work was called me Tinkerbell. It makes me so mad.
That would piss me off too.
It does, but he's a nice guy. So I just drag him back.
Yeah, gotta give him a good name.
Well, yeah. Well, he's a Bears fan. I don't have to give him a good name.
What? They're in the Super Bowl.
I know, but they no, they ain't.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Packers screamed them. Packers are on such a roll, man. Silly.
Yeah.
Okay. Now back to the games. I did install 2 of these. The 2 I want to mention. One is called Nexuz, Nexuiz. Wow. This game flowed so very nice.
On the XPS?
On the XPS.
It's a first-person shooter, and it looks like the graphics are pretty hardcore.
I honestly thought these were like some kind of sharpened Photoshop screenshots. I didn't expect it to look that good.
And it did, huh?
It looked very, very, very good. Now, whenever I load a full-screen game, I typically go and disable comp is. Now, in the default Ubuntu or Mint, if you go to the Appearance application, and then the last tab, it's called Effects, I change it to none. That means don't use any processing power or any of the video card power to enable wobbly windows or fading when you close the window or any of that. Just turn all that off and then run the game. I always seem to get slightly better results.
Are you seeing my comp is door?
Yeah, the wobbly windows, I swear, took a generation of people and made them want to install Ubuntu.
I know, I loved it. I turned it. I was messing around with the settings, just going through a couple settings. I was trying to turn on the screensaver or turn off the screensaver, and I just saw, graphic settings or whatever it was, and I'm like, oh, fire that baby up. And then, so I got my wobbly windows. I love them, and I'm not even on a real hardcore computer with this. It's only a Dell laptop, a 1545. So.
Well, and here's the thing I'll tell you about comp is, if you have a super high-end graphics card, you'll probably see worse results than if you have standard onboard Intel graphics.
Why? Because they really mastered the driver on the Intel stuff?
Partially that, partially because that onboard video chipset is so common. It's everywhere. And if you have a Radeon HD 9650, they're not on close to as many computers, which means the drivers aren't going to be worked on by as many people.
Okay, yeah, because it works flawless. I was surprised. This has crappy Intel graphics. Worked great, so.
Yeah, yeah. And the best thing I like about this game, the single-player game seemed pretty normal, nothing super. The multiplayer game was pretty good. I was on Wi-Fi, and I did see a little bit of lag, which you see on any first-person shooter game, where the guy who runs in front of you isn't smoothly running in front of you. He like jumps, a little bit.
Right.
but that's on all games. I've never seen it run perfectly smooth.
Multiplayer online?
Yeah.
Worked good. And other people were playing it?
Yeah. I got, 3 minutes into it, I had to turn it off because I got killed like 8 times and I didn't kill anybody. Just told me I had to I had to sharpen my skills, not harpen my skills.
Every time I attempt an Xbox Live game, I just get demolished. And the only one I really stuck with, I had to play it for like 200 hours before I could even come close to competing. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, see, that's why I like the video game Skate on PS3, because the online mode wasn't even competitive.
What do you mean?
It was just, hey, how's it going? Let's go over here and skate.
Let's go over here and skate.
Because if it was competitive, I would have got pounded.
That's awesome. Oh, God.
Yeah, the next game I wanted to mention, it's a little different looking, is the nicest way I can put it. But it ran.
Is it this Tamiki Fighters? Because it's very polygonic, and I can imagine I can imagine most graphics cards could handle this game.
Yeah, but I tell you, it ran fast too. It wasn't, nothing on it was slow.
Right.
Everything was very quick on it. I love that when you went up and down, because this is like a 2D side-scrolling shooter.
Okay.
So you're flying to the right, and things are coming at you from the right. Yeah.
Oh, I see it now. Okay, I was trying to get my bearings on the game.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a little different. And when you go up and down, when you push up and down, you actually pivot a little bit when you shoot.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I love. When you shoot and kill somebody, like their soul, let's say, I don't know what it is, pops out of them and arches towards you but falls down. If you swoop down and catch it, it adds extra power or guns to your ship.
Really?
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. Most of these games, if the screen's almost filled with bullets, it's impossible to avoid them all.
Right.
Impossible. With this game, with up and down, left and right, the screen was pretty full, and I could easily see where to go, and I was easily doing it and avoiding gun.
Neat. Damn, you find some good games, Dory. This looks like something I'd like. I love this type of graphics. Well,
that's what I liked about it, because I knew ahead of time, I already understand the basis of this game, but when I figured out you could catch things that were falling and add an extra gun to your ship, oh yeah, cool. Yeah.
It's great, man.
Yeah, so I had to pause it, clean up some baby puke, and go back and play it. The one I didn't get a chance to play, but it's Mega Glest. Mega Glest.
I've seen that. I look with the dragons flying around.
Yeah, dragons. How can you go wrong?
Yeah, how could you go wrong? That's great.
Yeah, now this was one you did have to go manually download, manually install. But when I went and looked at it, nothing looked complex. Once again, very simple. Download and then copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste.
You haven't played it yet?
No.
Okay. Let us know how that one goes.
No, because I had to run out of the house, pick up a doctor's note for my work. I took my kid to the doctor the other day, but I need a doctor's note for my work.
Ah, so lame.
I know. I tell him, get away. But yeah, my comment on this was wow plus dang. Because wow, these games look really good, and dang, this seems like a never-ending pathway of games that I'm coming across. We're on the Windows world, it's like everybody's focused on Call of Duty, Call of Duty, Call of Duty, until something new comes out, and then everybody forgets about Call of Duty, nobody's on it, and then they're on to the next thing. In the Linux world, I feel it's much more diverse, which I also believe you'll get less of the snot-nosed 13-year-old kids who do nothing all day except play that game.
Right.
So I'm in favor of it.
I have to say, man, I'm quite impressed on a weekly basis how many games you dig up out of here and how cool they look. So
yeah,
I have to start playing them more. That's my main thing.
Well, to be honest, I don't have a lot of game time, period, but I like just taking a break, stopping what I'm doing. Here's a waffle, here's a hot dog to the two boys, and just sit down for a couple minutes and just, have fun at a game.
Yeah.
and if it's really catches me in the very beginning, then in the next couple weeks, I'll devote a little bit of time here and there to play it.
Sounds good to me. Sounds like a good method.
Yeah, as long as I don't run out of waffles, I'm okay.
Waffles and hot dogs. Hot dogs are new. Waffles is the staple. Don't go mixing up the diet too much.
I know. Well, here's the thing. They are all beef hot dogs. They're not those turkey, chicken, weird Franks that taste a little funky.
Yeah.
And I think it's hysterical now when my 5-year-old or 2-year-old go to somebody else's house and they give them hot dogs. They take a bite and they're like, "What is this?
Really?
This isn't a hot dog." And I'm like, "Good job."
They're like, "Is this all beef?"
Yeah.
I have to say, did you listen to the last episode of Windows Weekly?
No.
Where Paul Thurrott went off on his new diet?
No.
I listened to it, and I actually bought the book that he was talking about, and I started implementing the techniques.
Huh.
And it's basically a low carb diet, like almost none of the bad carbs. But I guess you could throw in I haven't finished reading the book, but I really started like upping my protein intake, and I've been feeling pretty damn good. I stepped on the scale over at the supermarket the other, and I lost about 4 pounds. So it's pretty interesting. Listen to that episode of Windows Weekly. I'm sure there's all kinds of diet advice out there, calories in, calories out, but this is not about calories. It's pretty interesting, and I was intrigued, and it seems to be working. So,
yeah, honestly, here's my belief about diets. This is just a personal belief. They're like beds. And that's what I mean. You go get a $200 bed or a $2,000 bed. The first X number of days when you go to sleep, it's the most comfortable thing you've ever done. And then in a matter of 6-8 months or whatever, it's just a bed.
right.
And then it doesn't feel comfortable. I honestly believe the worst thing you can do with a diet is do one thing and just stick with that one thing. I think you always got to I don't want to say jump diets, but, focus on something else every 8 months or so.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dorb. Different types of food maybe, but I always wanted to know what foods are really good and really bad. I mean, no BS aside. Is it calories? Is it protein? Is it carbs? Is it what? So this book actually made a lot of sense. I mean, he went over societies that used to be like really in shape, like Indian societies that used to be really in shape, did great,
Right.
ate their faces off, but were like badass, in shape, lean, because they were eating different types of food. And then, the white man came and like redirected the rivers, and all the animals got slaughtered and stuff, so they had to end up eating like corn and grains, and they just got fat. And they didn't even have to eat more. It's not like they overate. They just ate the wrong kind of food. It was making them fat. So this whole book is like, it doesn't matter how much you eat. It matters what you eat. So I found that interesting because I hate not eating as much as I want at a meal. And if I'm eating foods that aren't fattening, you could eat more of them. And so,
Right.
and he also explained why my Jenny Craig worked for as long as it did, and I gained a lot of that weight back. So this is I don't know. This seems more. I'm looking at this more like a lifestyle than a diet. Like,
Good man.
I want to know what kind of foods I could eat for the rest of my life and not worry about if I'm going to get fat or not. And this actually helps. It's the author's Gary Taub. I think Taubes. I think it's Gary. And
Okay.
the book is called like Why You Get Fat and How to Stop It or something like that. Listen to Windows Weekly and they'll explain it.
Gotcha. Well, then I have one question for you. Can I eat steak on the diet?
Yeah, Vash in the chat said the same thing. Yes.
I agree.
Steak, all the steak you want, actually.
That's my kind of diet.
Yeah, I know that. Some diets seem much more appealing when you see the kind of foods you're okay to eat. And I got the green light on a lot of stuff I'm going to be trying out. So
Very cool.
see how it goes. All right, back on subject. My bad.
Yeah, and honestly, diet's one of those things you have to actively think about, irregardless. If you don't, you're doomed. Like me.
Yeah.
You have to actively pay attention to what you're eating. At
Right.
least.
Yep. The only reason is there's so much crap out there. And the
Yeah,
reason why there's so much crap out there is because it's the cheapest food to make and sell. So companies want to make profits. They don't care if you're thin. So,
I agree.
Yeah, so a lot of crap gets sold, and it's just so much crap out there. But
Yeah, and I told my wife all the time, if we want to eat healthy, you have to understand we're going to have to budget for it because it costs more.
yeah, it actually does. But then you find you
Yeah.
eat less. It's interesting. And
Right.
he also talks about working out and exercise and how that factors in, and you'd be quite surprised his findings. But like Vash is saying in the chat room again, he calls it the predator diet. I agree. I agree. It is a good way of explaining it, characterizing it.
Cool. Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Okay. Back on track.
Okay. Next thing I wanted to bring up, it's something I never hear anyone talk about really, and it's the fact that open source email servers. Um,
Yeah.
right now, I mean, I know there has to be Linux ones out there,
How hard can they
but
be to make?
well, but I think they're all very, very, very old, and they only do email, and that's it. Like with the Microsoft universe, you have Exchange, which you can do pretty dynamic things with contacts, calendars,
Uh,
task, events, and email. So I found this article, and there's a product called Open Exchange,
yeah.
and I can safely say right now, it's not ready for prime time. It's ready for a small implementation, to where if something goes wrong, the building isn't burning down per se. But every story I've read in the last like 5 months said everybody has to be aware of this because this is gaining a lot of traction, a lot of support, a lot of developers. So this is going to be a very prime time system in the next year, they believe.
Really? So it's just starting. It's new?
No, it's been going on for at least 3 years, but in the last like 8 months to a year has caught a lot of people on board working on it.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
That's pretty exciting.
I actually linked to the wrong page. I linked to the page 2. This is one of those stupid, click here to continue, click here to continue. But it was a good article, so I had to link to it. But yeah, it's one of those things. I just want to throw it out there. I want people to just be aware there is choice in everything in this universe. You do not have to use one thing over the other. And if you insist on having your own email server, which I understand the desire of control, I don't understand the desire of responsibility, but that's just me. I don't want somebody to keep calling me up saying the server's down.
Right.
Let's just say that. I would love for them to say the Google server's down to where I can say, no, it's not. It's fine.
Right.
There's, 30 million people this second accessing it. But I digress. This really does look very cool. Was another one out.
Free. Well, first of all, it's open dash the letter exchange.com. What am I looking here? I clicked buy. Open Exchange Appliance Edition, software appliance for all small and medium-sized enterprise.
Right.
$675 for the server.
Well, this is a very common model in the open source world. You can download it. Everything I looked at, you can download the software for free, or you can buy a managed appliance, which basically you're paying for the hardware and the support.
Oh, they sell you the hardware too.
Yeah, and
okay.
Which, there's a certain amount of guarantees that come with that. They guarantee you're not going to have hardware conflicts. The operating system is going to work with it, and it's much easier for them to troubleshoot and diagnose issues.
Okay.
So, yeah, and I can tell you $600 is still 3-4 times cheaper.
It's definitely cheaper, but I thought open source free and.
Well, I'll tell you, there is definitely working functional business models in the open source world where you can offer something absolutely for free and then you can pay for it with support and hardware that comes with it. And a lot of times the hardware you get, if you look at the price and you look at the hardware, you're still getting a deal on the hardware.
Right.
So they're throwing in the software for free.
I see. Makes sense.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to lean on the same kind of thing. The one thing I hate about my organization and the Windows computers is if someone's computer dies and the hard drive is inaccessible, how do I get that computer back up to a noticeable state for that user? I didn't know when I replaced the computer, they say that she needed to have the absolute newest flash for this training thing. And I just gave her the old flash. And then when you go as a non-admin user and click it, it says you need to install flash. Click here. You try to install it and it breaks. And then it takes literally a half an hour to fix.
Huh.
It's that kind of thing that really makes the small business and enterprise world aggravating when it comes time to replace a computer. Ubuntu has, and I'm 99.9999% sure, it's not a Ubuntu tool, but this is a Linux tool. It's called Cobbler. What Cobbler basically allows you to do is it allows you to make profiles of users and then store and back up these profiles. So
that's cool.
Susan in accounting, she has to have OpenOffice installed. She has to have this special PDF application installed so she can manipulate her PDFs the right way. She likes her panda bear background, kind of stuff.
Who wouldn't?
Exactly. And this application allows you to take that, create what's called a profile, and back that profile up to a server. So when her computer gets replaced, it's a simple, very simple matter of copying that profile down to the computer.
I see.
And it will automatically go out and install all the applications that was listed for that user. All the desktop settings will come right back. Honestly, even if you're just a home user and you want to use it for yourself, it's doable.
Sure.
It's definitely doable. Or, your kid's device, it's definitely doable. But I see this being really helpful in the small business arena.
I see it too. Definitely. I mean, huge there. But I think you said, when you said kids, I picture kids being able to mess up their account and then get this reinstalled too.
Oh yeah. I mean, anyone knows if it's breakable, a kid will break it. And honestly, I want to take just a short break.
Yes.
and just hover around that topic right there, breaking computers, fixing computers.
Okay.
I don't really expect everybody who's listening to this show only uses Linux and only deals with Linux. We all have to deal with other computer systems, whether they're Mac or Windows or whatever. I want to tell people out there, if you have to deal with Windows computers, even if you yourself run Windows day to day, there is a new service coming available at betterpctech.com that will absolutely assist you and make your task of fixing those computers much quicker.
Tell us more.
Lalo Nunez, if you've been in the forums or anything like the time, you've seen his step-by-step tutorials. I have never in my life seen such care and detail given to something that he gave away for free. That plus he's going to do on this site. And I highly encourage people, if they want to make their humdrum things they have to do day to day quicker, and in a lot of senses automated, you need to go to betterpctech.com. Today is Tuesday. I believe it's going to be up in less than like 48 hours.
Yeah, we plan on launching it when he comes over for Podnutz Pro tomorrow. So gotcha. I think the site's still under construction now, but it's betterpctech.com. It's about 8 or 9 videos of stuff that Lalo does, and just like you heard Dor talking about it, the same level of knowledge and care he puts into his manuals he was giving away, he did in video form with this, and there's some killer stuff that if you're a computer tech and you want to, especially if you want to save time on some of the repetitive stuff you do over and over again, this is going to be right up your alley. So it's a great way to I think it's a great thing to put out there in the Podnutz community. It's a great way to support Lalo, and I think it's just an all-around good thing to promote. So betterpctech.com. It's under construction now, but tune in tomorrow for Podnutz Pro for the grand opening.
Yeah, and I'll say I've been using for years Auto Hotkey, and he uses Auto It. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like tomato.
Yeah.
Even though nobody says tomato anymore.
I just had some tomatoes in my salad. I mean, tomatoes.
Exactly. Every time I say that, I keep thinking of the Saturday Night Live skit of I can't remember his name, where he was singing the song, "You say tomato and I say tomato," but he kept singing it wrong. Oh man,
Not Will Ferrell.
somebody, no. Oh man, super ballistically dry actor. He had that music video where he was dancing. And he talks, a little. I can't. I gotta drop it.
What time era? What era?
Oh, this music video less than 8 years ago, I say.
Kevin Nealon?
No, old guy. He's at least late 50s.
I don't know.
He was in Suicide Kings.
I didn't see it.
Dang.
That's okay.
Okay, I gotta move past Robert. And here's one thing I want to say.
Christopher Walken?
Christopher Walken.
Okay, that's from Covalent 89 in the chat.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, he sung that song, but he kept singing, "You say tomato and I say tomato, you say tomato and everyone's like, no, it's tomato." Oh, okay. You say tomato and I say tomato. No, you got to say one or the other. And he's like, "Who the hell says tomato?" So I just can't never get that out of my head. But I'll say I use AutoHotkey. He uses AutoScript. They really are almost interchangeable.
Yeah.
I've been using it for years. The concepts and ideas he talked about, because I asked him, "What do can you give me an example of what you're going to be doing in these videos?" He sent me 2 of the videos. I didn't really want that, but he did. The concepts he uses in those videos are out of the box and they're genius. I'll just say that.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They can absolutely make a mundane task that takes an hour a simple click, and then you sit down and watch Pawn Stars.
Exactly. No, because that's how Lalo is. He like you'll be doing something, and I think he just in his mind, and we'll start going like, how can I do this without doing all those steps over and over and over again? And then he puts it into a script. It is genius.
Right now, see, even though he's on Podnutz Pro, and I cry every time when it's just you and me, I would really love some Lalo here, but that's okay.
I don't think he's touched Linux. You need to make a personal attempt to get him on board, and then he could come on anytime he wants.
Well, I've honestly found the worst thing to do is to basically badger a Windows person telling them they need to use Linux. It's honestly the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And you know what? Honestly, I actually don't even know if he's touched Linux. If he has, I'm sorry, I take it back. But he never talks about it. So
I can guarantee you he has, but I can guarantee you it isn't a 180 in how much is different. It ain't a 360. It's like a 720 of how much has changed since the last time he's used it. But no matter what, he's still a good guy. Okay.
He's going to appreciate that commercial, by the way, Dor.
He won't even hear it. He doesn't listen to the show. That's okay.
Yeah, good point.
I still love him.
He's going to wonder how he made so many sales.
I know. Even though he's a Bears fan, that's okay.
Good man.
Absolutely. The next thing I wanted to talk about really quick was 3 tools, and I'm using air quotes because they're really not tools. They're command line commands, which I know scares a lot of people off. But
that's all right. We're getting over it.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing everybody should know and realize by now, I go very far out of my way to make sure I don't talk about complicated things. Or if they are complicated, they're very well documented. These 3 commands, one's called iperf, never heard of it. One's called netcat. I've heard of that. I have no idea what it does. And the other one, I want to say what's called, I can't remember. BWCTL maybe?
Netcat, and I got it. Yeah, BWCTL, which stands for Bandwidth Test Controller.
Oh, yeah, of course. It was all the tongue. I can say I've never really got into any of these tools, but after reading this post, these tools are absolutely genius and in some cases needed for certain network issues. Here's the beautiful thing about it. You're on a Windows network at a small business, because that's what they all seem to run. They're having a network issue. All you got to do is take 2 Ubuntu CDs or Knoppix CDs or Puppy CDs or whatever CDs. Boot to both of them. This page gives you a very explicit step-by-step. Now, here's why this tool works so well. This ain't your granddaddy's ping or net trace or trace router and whatever. This is a client server architecture. So you're not just spitting stuff out and listening. You're actually actively monitoring from both sides of the communication. This is a very ingenious but simple way to really diagnose network issues, slowdown points, where stuff is going wrong. It gives you step-by-step what to type on the server mode and the client mode to help diagnose what's going on these networks.
It's on the site is linuxaria.com, linuxaria.com.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing, I don't know about you, but to me, networking is still kind of voodoo.
Yeah.
I know there's 7 layers. I know there's protocols. I know there's headers. I know there's handshakes. I know there's ACKs, syntax.
Well, then you know more than me.
I know, but I don't know. I know the word exists. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't really understand what's going on. These tools, I'm sure by looking at this, would even let someone as little knowledgeable as myself help understand what's going wrong when something's going wrong. Because with me, it's always the same kind of thing. I sit there, well, did you reboot the computer? Oh, well, let's change the network cable. And that's where I'm done. After that, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe the next time. I have no idea. But this is a really good educational post, I'll say, because you take these 3 tools and you just research those 3 tools, you can get a job doing things that a lot of people cannot do.
That's so awesome. 3 command line tools to test bandwidth.
Yeah.
Sweet, man.
I thought that was ultra cool. The next thing I wanted to talk about real quick was Ubuntu 11.04.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little hesitant, a little scared, a little not looking forward to this version for a couple reasons. First, I'll say this is not a long-term support edition. In the past, it seemed like every version was stable enough to be a long-term support edition. I believe with this 11.04, they're actually stepping away from that, and this is not going to be a rock-solid distribution.
Why do you say that?
Well, the 2 things that they're changing are 2 drastically deep changes. The first one is they're taking the X server and they're replacing it with Wayland, which I know I just spoke Greek to a lot of people.
Yes.
Everything that looks graphical or interacts with the graphical environment, keyboard, mice, monitor, the windows themselves, the basic layout and how windows are presented and designed, everything, that's X. You have GNOME that's on top of X, KDE that's on top of X, all these other things that are on top of X to make your display work.
Right.
But X is the core of it. They're replacing that with Wayland, which I do believe sometime in the future, maybe May, I don't know, could be 3 years from now, but in some point in time, I do believe that will be the standard graphical server on Linux.
Okay.
I just think they're jumping the gun a little bit, but that's just
why are they doing that?
Because they believe it offers much more dynamic controls to where, like, now you have to have compiz to do the wobbly windows and stuff.
Yeah.
With Wayland, it's more built in. X, I want to say, is an easy 10 years old.
I see.
In computer terms, we all know that means it's 50.
Right, right.
Usually stuff that old doesn't stick around unless you're Windows and it's NTFS. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud? I didn't mean that, Steve. Sorry. But that's a big jump in my eyes. Big jump. Certain like hardcore tools like screen recorders, I think are going to have a hard time working until they get an updated version of it.
I see.
The second thing they're doing is they're getting rid of the GNOME desktop. The GNOME desktop is a staple in Linux. I mean, Everyone knows on virtually any distribution, you can do KDE, you can do GNOME, you can do XFCE, LXDE, OpenBox, Fluxbox, and all these other things. They're getting rid of it, and they're using Unity.
Why are they doing that again?
I believe they're doing it because they are the main stakeholder in it.
I see.
These two things, I think, are very hand-in-handish. With Unity and Wayland, they can easily make prettier things happen, I'll say. You know, nobody else uses Unity. It's basically theirs. It's technically not theirs, but it's theirs because they're the major stakeholder in it, which means if I join the team, which I might be able to, I'm not sure I can, I can't make a decision because I'm not the major stakeholder. On a lot of other open source things, there isn't a stakeholder, there's a team, you know, one guy from Belgium, one guy from Yugoslavia, one guy from Texas, you know what I mean? They're the people that make the decisions, and they do it based upon the community. What does the community want? How can we as a team make this better, more desirable?
Right.
With Ubuntu, it's how can we make Ubuntu better? And honestly, one of the smartest guys I heard talk in depth about this is Jonathan Nadeau. And this has to deal a lot with downstream and upstream, which to a non-Linux person, the words are literal. Upstream and downstream from the source. If something is upstream from the source, then stuff should come back down. And if something is downstream from the source, then it's feeding off of the source. Okay. Unity is upstream, which means they're deciding what they want to do. They're not taking stuff from other people.
I see.
So it's a little scary that they're basically setting themselves apart like this. Now, if that said, they made a decision that I absolutely love with 1104. I think just the very last show, I kind of said, well, LibreOffice isn't really ready for prime time. I swear the very next day they released their final. They're ready for prime time version. And Ubuntu 1104 is not going to ship with OpenOffice. It's going to ship with LibreOffice.
Nice.
And I can tell you, OpenOffice is not Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office, the average user does not use 98% of the things available in it. That's a recorded stat from Microsoft themselves. The average user doesn't use 98% of it. And something like for the last 3 iterations, 80+% of the things people said that they wanted in Office were already in Office.
That's great.
So it's very heavy. It has too much stuff in it. I'll say that. LibreOffice and OpenOffice do not have as much in there, but it has more than enough for me to do everything I need to do on a day-to-day basis. I've been using it at my 9 to 5 now for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
The thing I found out that I did not know is if you take that off the box checklist like you would have on Norton or McAfee of all the things it can do, the features are the same with OpenOffice and LibreOffice, which I gotta say is pretty phenomenal. In a few short months, they were able to take a almost year-old version of LibreOffice and make it feature compliant with OpenOffice.
Well, I know because Ubuntu wants control of LibreOffice now, right?
And I can tell you they will never gain control of LibreOffice. Can't be done. Not going to do it.
Why? There's too many people in the community.
It's already community based, and the only major stakeholder I know that's a company, and they're not a major stakeholder. They're, I think, like 20% was Novell. And Novell, I don't like. I'm not a fan of their products, but it seems like they always try to do the right thing. So I support them like that.
Right.
Typically, if something's already in existence, Ubuntu's not going to be able to take control of it. It's usually something of their own making.
I see. Well, that's
But
good.
yeah,
That's good.
that's really good. This is the kind of thing I think that needs more support, because LibreOffice is more open than OpenOffice. And if the LibreOffice people do something that really makes the community mad, they can take the latest release and fork it and call it Steve Office. you, you know,
Yeah.
with OpenOffice, you always had to go back, I think, a version or two before you could fork it because of some kind of stuff they were doing to the licensing.
I see. You know what? Oracle's just going to dump it in. What do they need it for? They don't care about it. It's free.
Yeah, I firmly believe since it doesn't make them money, they're not going to hold on to it long.
I don't think so.
Yeah, just me.
Or they're not going to develop it or whatever.
Right. They're going to slowly like pull people off it. And say, here, you put your finger in the dam. Don't worry about that. The next thing I want to talk about, I talked about last Thursday on Android App Addicts. This is an application for Android. Little side note, just Google search Android x86 and you can see you can install Android on your desktop, laptop, netbook, notebook, Nokia N810. You can install it a lot of places. This is a Android app called Ubuntu Pocket Reference. The disclaimer I'll give for the app is this is not complete at all, because to be complete is really demanding. There's a lot of stuff, This is not perfect either. It seems like this was taken from like version 904, because they say you can reboot by holding down Alt Sysrec, which nobody uses ever for the last 30 years.
30 years.
And B, well, I'm serious. The last time I saw it in use was like Windows 3.1. Long time ago. That command, I don't believe it works in Ubuntu anymore. Granted, I'm on laptops that have the weird function key that might cause it not to work right, but I know when I boot up to Arch or Fedora and I hit the buttons, my computer reboots. The second thing that doesn't work, Ubuntu also disabled, was Control-Alt-Backspace. That takes that X server and it resets it. I don't think Ubuntu likes it, because if you're in the middle of a Word document, OpenOffice document, LibreOffice document, or a GIMP image, and you hit that, you're not even prompted to save. It just, boom, kills it and restarts.
Really?
Yeah. So I can almost understand why they disabled that one, but in the Ubuntu Pocket Reference, it does mention you can do that.
And everything else is looks pretty good in it.
Everything else is spot on. I like their approach of not even trying to be a complete reference, but highlighting a lot of questions that new users have. And I don't really mean questions. It's like they have a section called application names. The file manager in Ubuntu, it's not called file manager. It's not called Ubuntu. In Windows, it's explorer.exe, which I think a large percentage of the Windows users above the mid-level understand.
Right.
None of the Linux new users are going to know it's called Nautilus, I think. And this app tells you, if you just, type in a command prompt or in the Alt and 2 run screen, Nautilus, hit enter, you get a file manager. Okay. So it tells you that kind of thing. It tells you like the GNOME text editor is gedit. It just tells you little things like that I honestly think are very helpful to a lot of people. And of course, it's free.
Of course.
Yeah. Honestly, Steve, the last thing I want to bring up really quick, I know it's going to probably stretch this out, because you and me, I think, are, let's just say, our tuning rods are tuned. That didn't sound right at all. We're, I think, hyper aware versus a lot of the normal people about the amount of tablets that are coming out, or touch-based interfaces. Like, I don't know if you saw the commercial for the new Dell Inspiron. I can't remember what it's called. Inspiron. It isn't called Inspiron Touch, but it's a new Inspiron. You open it up like a laptop, then inside of the
bezel there?
yeah, you can flip the whole monitor
Yeah.
and put it back down, and it's a touchscreen.
I heard that thing is the biggest piece of junk ever made.
Would you expect nothing less? But I honestly believe if you put Linux on it, it'll run better.
I believe it too.
But yeah, that's just my personal belief. This is a good article on Ubuntu Vibes, and it tells you how to make your Linux desktop. Let me see. Take a second.
Turn your Linux desktop, tablet, or touch device into a digital sketchpad.
Yeah, looking at this, it honestly looks to me cooler than it sounds. Because when I think sketchpad, I think of something not very advanced, not very user-friendly, and something you just draw on. But if you go down through the whole article, it has very good step-by-steps of how to install things. Some of them you have to compile from source, but I did try the one that mentioned, and it was seriously that easy of just typing those commands. It also has, in my eyes, maybe the prettiest touchscreen keyboard I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. It's badass.
Yeah, that is like glossy, shiny. I mean,
yeah, very nice. It almost looks like it would click if you pressed it.
That's exactly what I was to say. Now, if it clicked when you pressed it, I'm sold. And like the Spotlighter tool is really for like presentations. And I'm just going to touch real quick. I honestly believe there is no better operating system, even remotely close, to make great presentations than Linux. There's a tool you can install, Steve, if you want to, I can send you the directions step by step. But it's very easy in most Linux desktops, very easy in Ubuntu, to make it to where if you take your mouse and you highlight a certain area, and then if you just simply hold down the Windows key and scroll your mouse, you will very seamlessly and very smoothly zoom in. I don't know about you, but when I'm in classes and presentations, more than a couple times, the presenter has to pull out a laser pointer and say, right here, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's right here, and they never really can, lock in on what they're trying to do because they're always on this full screen image of this flat image, and they can never change that. With the desktop zoom effect in the Compiz settings manager, it makes it so easy to just literally zoom in what you want to do. And here's one dirty trick I'll tell you, Steve. On my old computers, when my flash would not work well in full screen, I would leave the flash as the window and then use that Windows and scroll to make it full screen without making it full screen. But it was full screen.
Yeah, but did it pixelize?
It pixelized exactly the same amount from my view
as if you would when you went
as if you went full screen. But it didn't. But it did not stutter or skip because there was no in Flash itself was not doing the hardware interpolation from one resolution to another resolution.
Right.
If that made sense.
No, that totally makes sense. So
Okay.
this allows you to just basically turn your desktop into a sketchpad.
Into a sketchpad and to a presenter, I'll say. I think this could be used for a presenter.
Yeah, great. Great.
Because you can literally, have the output going to a thing, and then you can literally touch the screen and circle and say, this right here,
right.
Guy 3 back and 4 over, right here. So, So yeah, I think this is cool, and I think with the advent of touchscreen laptops and tablet computers, I see this arena of software and operating systems exploding in the next 2 years.
You're right.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
I think you're right. At first, I'm like, sketchpad, big deal. But no, as you're talking, and the more I'm looking at this is going to be huge.
Yeah, because I'll say everyone always says the iPad is fantastic, and then if you get them into a corner, they say it's the perfect concept media kind of assumption device, and then they have one or two apps that really make it nice to create. I honestly think these kind of open source things will make it easier to create and not just consume.
Right, right.
Now, and to be honest, I think it's going to be virtually impossible for a Linux tablet device to be as, let me think of the right verbiage here, Steve. I would find it almost really super difficult to set up and configure to make a Linux tablet device as
Polished?
as easily digestible for media consumption. Because in that iPad interface, I know, everything's banging in your face.
It's all
And
about
there's-
the apps, though. And
there's only one button.
yeah,
So it isn't like you have to hunt and peck.
this is true. This is true. But still, you could have the same. You can make any Linux tablet, I think, just as much of a good content, just like consumption machine as the iPad. It's all in the apps. I mean, the good content apps like Flipboard and Fluge, I can't remember, I downloaded one the other day, are excellent. But that's all the apps. It's not the iPad, really. iPad's just the vehicle. It's the touchscreen. So
Well, and it was Netflix, I believe. There was somebody major in the last couple of weeks that insisted they were going to come out with a Linux client.
oh, that's cool.
Now I think it wasn't Netflix because they're the ones that use
Hulu.
Silverlight for some guy. Yeah. Hulu Plus, I think it might have been.
They could suck it. I'm so sick of Hulu and all the shenanigans.
Well, I honestly can't stand any of them, but once in a while they got me by my Guebos, and that's where I got to go to watch what I want to watch. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you what. You know what? Google TV. We're on the subject of Linux here, and it's technically Android. I am sick of this thing getting bashed. You tell me what other device out there has a browser? Nobody mentions the fact that Google TV has a browser. Where do I do most of my content consumption? From a browser. If I don't care if the Boxy Box has like a couple things, and the Roku has Netflix and Amazon, and whatever other box, and all the TVs are coming out with their own apps, and the DVD players are coming out with their own apps, and none of them have a browser. Google TV has a browser. Include that in your critique of Google TV. It's got a killer keyboard and a browser. I haven't watched TV Door in a month. I get on that browser and I put content on my big screen and I watch whatever the heck I want, and it's not TV. So,
right. Well, just two quickies. The only really TV I've been watching, I can't stop watching Hardcore Pawn, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I guess they got the magic formula for Door. I don't know.
But also, secondly, I just bought via podnutz.com/Amazon a mini HDMI cable because my Android phone has a mini HDMI port.
Yeah, I always wanted to get one. How's it working?
I haven't got it yet, but I'm getting it very soon. And I know there's an application called Real HDMI or HDMI Real. The default in the Android interface is only certain things will be coming out of that port.
Right.
So if you're browsing YouTube, you can't see it on the TV.
Right.
Until you launch the video, and then it shows up on the TV. I don't play that. I want everything to be coming out of the HDMI cable, including my NES games with my Wiimote and everything else. I'm kind of excited about this because, like you, I would find it much easier and simpler to have my browser on my TV, and I can just turn the phone sideways and use that as the keyboard. I think that's kind of doable on a big screen TV.
Absolutely. Yeah, that definitely is. Let me know how that goes. I'm thinking about buying one of those cables.
Gotcha. And I'll say, I'm like you. I almost don't care about Netflix. Netflix would be one of those things, to be honest, once every 3 weeks, I'll think.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool. The rest of the time, I'm thinking, this is crap. I don't want to watch Notebook,
The Notebook.
stuff like that.
Get Google TV and watch the Google Notebook. It's better.
Right. Exactly. Trust me, I much more digest.
All right. Should we do emails, Door?
Sure. Yes. I love emails.
All right. This is from Brian. My intro to Linux was Ubuntu. It was nice, but I could see it did not have enough to completely pull me from Windows. I found Ultimate Edition, and I really like it. I've tried Mint, SUSE, and a few lesser-known ones, but I've always returned to Ultimate Edition. Yes, UE is large, about 2.4 gigs, but it has everything all those other distros have and more. There's even UE gamers. Now, I consider myself a noob. I'd like to hear what you professionals think of it. I really enjoy your show. Well, the professional is you, Dor. I've never used it. So what do you think about Ubuntu Ultimate?
I'll say there's
Or
nothing
Ultimate
wrong.
Ubuntu Ultimate Edition.
Yeah. I'll say there's nothing wrong with it. I ran it myself for at least 6-8 months. The only thing I didn't appreciate about it was the default compass settings and theme settings made it a little bit heavier than your typical Ubuntu. But if you have the hardware, it doesn't matter.
So it jacks all that up.
Not by a whole lot, but yes, it jacks up. The thing I really liked about it was think of it as a critiqued Walmart, because so much was installed on this distro. It was amazing to me, the level of choice you had. Even to just play a video, I think you had 3 or 4 choices.
Really? That's
to
pretty
do
badass.
instant messaging, 3 or 4 choices. So they took what they thought was the best of a broader spectrum of applications, and they installed them. I found more than a couple apps I still use to this day because of that distribution.
Well, there you go. Now, am I taking this right that you basically called the Ubuntu repository or the Linux repositories Walmart? Indirectly?
No, they're worse than Walmart. They are like news groups.
Okay.
Because anything you can imagine, it seems like, is in there. And
even screaming kids?
Even screaming kids. Anything you can pretty much imagine. This is what I keep telling people. Think of how you use Google, and you have to have a little bit of a talent to really find what you're looking for sometimes.
Yeah.
Same thing with the repos. It isn't just the first thing you type in, in. You might not find it. You might have to change a word or something.
Yeah.
Virtually any possible thing you can think of is in the Debian Ubuntu repositories. Over 30,000 applications.
Damn.
That's kind of mind-numbing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
And Chrome isn't in it. You got to go download the deb. But I digress.
That's weird. All right. Next email is from Nick. Hey guys, I've installed Linux SUSE 11.1 on an HP ProLiant DL380 G7. After installing the OS, the front VGA output signal was fine, but when I switched the output to the rear of the server, the signal's all washed out. Like if the IT does not have any graphics card, if it doesn't have, he spelled it weird, but he's like, if it doesn't have any graphics card, any suggestions would be helpful. Nick. Door?
Oh, me? I sure didn't suggest install SUSE. I'm going to say this. Always try something more accessible than that. SUSE, I'll say this. SUSE is a tremendously good enterprise distribution, but you always got to start small. Always.
All right.
And I'll say the one thing I firmly believe about this instance is I believe that's 2 different video cards. I do not believe it is the same video card with 2 outputs.
Okay. That would explain it.
But I'll say launch up a live CD of Ubuntu and see if that one runs right, or Puppy or Knoppix or something, and see if they all have similar-esque issues, or the front doesn't work at all, but the back works, kind of thing.
Right.
The one hiccup, I'll say, I've heard many people exclaim about in virtually every Linux distribution is if you have a multi-monitor setup, you should always disconnect your secondary monitor when you boot to that disk and when you install that operating system and first boot it up, leave it disconnected. After the first boot, plug it in and then reboot. And everybody I know said that's the easiest, most painless way to get everything working right.
Really?
Now, this might be an internal thing where he has to actually crack the case and unplug something so he can do those similar steps. But first, keep it simple. Boot to Knoppix, boot to Puppy, boot to Ubuntu, boot to Mint, boot to anything else. And then see if you have similar issues or just issues, period. If other distros don't have those issues, write me back. I'll tell you a couple commands you can run that can make you greater understand how it's working fine in this one and what to do to get it to run fine in the other one.
Sweet. Good tips.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dor.
No
All right,
problem.
2 more emails real quick.
Okay.
This one is from Ben. He says, I just learned poking around on Ubuntu 1 that Tomboy Notes performs all the same tasks that Evernote does. It's cross-platform and it keeps it on the cloud of Ubuntu 1. Worth a mention on Linux for the rest of us. I tried to install Evernote but couldn't besides a plugin to Chrome. And I tried to install Evernote and couldn't besides a plugin to Chrome, aka no native Linux app for it. And he gives a link here. It is Ubuntu 1, wiki.ubuntu.com, Ubuntu 1, tutorial notes here for, what did they say the name of the app was? Tomboy Notes. Tomboy Notes. Okay, something to check out. You've used that before, Dor?
Well, I'll say that specific implementation is not truly cross-platform right now, because I believe you can only install Ubuntu 1 easily on Debian-based distributions, not so easily on other Linux distributions, and I don't believe they have a Windows version yet.
Okay.
Tomboy does do a lot of what Evernote does. The only 2 things I can tell you I know it doesn't do OCR on pictures.
Right.
There was something else about, I don't know if it takes sound clips. I think Evernote does take sound clips.
I'm not sure. I'm not a user.
But I'll tell you, he was in the lounge the other night, and the same kind of thing where we talked about installing Chrome, same kind of issue we had the first time with getting Wine to work with an EXE. All you got to do is go to the Ubuntu Software Center or to Synaptic Package Manager or sudo app install Wine. Just Wine. You're going to see a whole bunch of versions, a whole bunch of files. Just install Wine. Then you download the Evernote Windows installer, right-click it, Properties, Permissions, Allow Execution.
I had to do that for Desktop Presenter the other day.
Right, and then right-click it again, open with, it's called Windows Interface Program Launcher or something to that effect. Once you do that, it loads and it runs like gold. It runs just fine. Every function I tried worked perfectly fine. So while it's not native, once you install it, it's hard to tell it ain't native just because the window looks a little differently.
Right.
But functionality-wise, it's the same thing.
Huh.
And to be honest, there's some people out there that hate Wine. We should not, as a community, spend our time getting this crappy software to work on our blessed operating system. Screw you guys, is all I gotta say. Wine is great for Linux. If you ignore it and you act like the other guys are bad guys, you will never get mass appeal. You will never get mass changeover. You have to make the process smooth. By supporting other software does not make Linux weaker. It makes it stronger. It makes it able to carry more of a load.
Dude, I'm so with you. This visual you're seeing now is a Linux. I do all my screenshots from this computer. It's a Linux computer. If it wasn't for Wine, I wouldn't be using it because I can't run this Desktop Presenter up in the left-hand corner. And if I can't run Desktop Presenter, I'm not using this computer for that purpose, and I'm not going to install Linux on it. So if it wasn't for Wine, I would not have Ubuntu installed on this machine.
Right.
So.
And I'll say, like I said, how far that Linux has came in the last 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Wine has really came absurdly far. Like I use Mikogo, Mikogo.
Yes.
There's no Linux version. It's the simplest and easiest way for me to connect to a Windows computer on my Linux computer, unless I already have LogMeIn installed, which of course, the first thing I do when I log in with Mikogo, I install LogMeIn. But for a new computer, it's the simplest way and it just works like gold. I love it.
I'm with you, Dor. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Not a Mikogo user, but I could see the application.
Yeah, and I'll say not everybody needs Wine on their Linux computer. But if you come across a hurdle and you know there's a Windows version, just try it. Just try to install it. And if you need help, send us an email or drop by the lounge. I'll be happy to help.
Sounds good. All right, last email here, and then we're going to end off. Hello, Steve and Steve. This is from Jeff, who is Blackhammer. This is his username. I love the show. It spurred me on to load Linux on my Samsung netbook. It rocks. I'm now running Mac Ubuntu on it, Ubuntu with the Mac theme. It prompted me to think about something. I have a 64-bit Windows 7 machine at work with 8 gig of RAM. I use it to launch various virtual machines. I find this to be the biggest advantage to 64-bit operating systems. Questions. Is there a similar advantage to 64-bit Linux? And are there other advantages of 64-bit versus 32-bit Linux? Thanks, Blackhammer.
I hate 64-bit, Steve. I'll say, to me, there is really only legitimately one advantage to 64-bit, and that's able to address more RAM better. Technically, the 4 gig limit in the 32-bit operating systems can be considered a glass ceiling, not real, because there are ways you can trick it to address more, but 4 is what it can address. The only advantage you get to 64-bit is more memory. You get a lot of disadvantages with 64-bit. Drivers, it's a completely different driver model.
Oh, man.
So certain things, it's much harder to get working in 64-bit. The old standby was always Flash, and 64-bit was horrible. In the XP days, and even in some of the Vista days, the 64-bit Flash would not work. You had to install Internet Explorer 32-bit edition in the 64-bit version of Windows to do Flash. So they're very similar advantages. I'll say my logic is, and this is just my petty mind thinking here, I have a box with more than 4 gigs of RAM. Like him, I'm not going to run a native operating system on it. I'm going to use it to spur VMs on it to where I can assign 2 gigs of RAM to this, 3 gigs of RAM to that, and let them take advantage of that.
Right, right.
In that case, I would install a utterly light distro like Ubuntu Server or some kind of GUI-less interface. And then there is an application out there called PHP VirtualBox, I believe it's called.
Okay.
Very simple install, and then it gives you the exact same virtually interface for VirtualBox via a web browser. So then you can have a headless computer in the corner with 12 gigs of RAM in it, no keyboard connected, no mouse, no monitor, and you can just keep spurring VMs. Then you can use remote desktop tools to get into those VMs and do what you need to do.
So you're saying that's pretty much the only reason to install 64-bit Linux is to use it as a VM machine.
That's me. There are plenty of people out there, like our buddy Chris, 10 gigs of RAM in a Windows computer. He doesn't understand it goes slower when you have that much RAM in there.
It does?
Yeah. Every Windows computer, there's been multiple tests that done. Once you go above like 7 to 8 gigs, it technically gets slower because to manage that space is taxing.
No kidding. That's interesting.
So
that's enough. At least we can make fun of him about it.
I always make fun of him anyway. He's such a good guy. He's so smart. He makes it easy.
All right, Dor, where can people find you if they want to contact you, and any last remarks you have?
I'll just say, if you don't know my email address by now, I ain't telling it again. Go to betterpctech.com.
Tomorrow when it's up.
Well, when you download the podcast. For you live guys, you know the routine.
That's right. Good point. Well, thanks, Dor. Thank you also, everybody, for listening, watching, streaming. Where's my mouse? That's going to be it for Linux for the rest of us tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time. Right, Dor?
Oh, yeah.
See ya.